Hello, my name is Ray Lopez, and I'm your City Council representative in District 6. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Lopez Live. I'm happy to have my guest today is Patricia Jimenez, the chairperson for the Raul Jimenez Thanksgiving Dinner, and Josh Donay, Public Information Officer with TxDOT. On today's show, we'll be discussing the Raul Jimenez Thanksgiving Dinner and projects within District 6. Now I'd like to welcome to the show my very first guest, Patricia Jimenez. Patricia, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I feel like every time that I see you, you're either on the radio, you're either running the telethon or raising money and doing wonderful things in our community, and you're greatly appreciated. Certainly, I speak to so many people that speak so highly of what you're doing now and what your dad started many, many years ago. So thank you for continuing it and taking it to the next level.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We couldn't do it without the support of so many wonderful people. And thank you, Councilman Lopez, for all of your continued support. I know that you've been assisting and supporting the Raul Jimenez Thanksgiving Dinner, even back in the days when you worked for AT&T.
That's right. Yeah, well, that's good. That was quite some time ago.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I remember a lot of the work that we did in that area, and thank you so much for continuing to keep that up. It's been a great tradition in San Antonio, and really, not only is it a tradition, but it's become what San Antonio is known for. Its big heart, its outreach to the community, and its total inclusiveness across the board. So thank you so much for that. You know, talking about that, let's talk a little bit of history, since we're kind of on the historic track here. Tell me a little bit about how the dinner got started, and what were you doing around the time that it was getting started?
Oh, well, very good. My father started this event actually in Fort Worth, out of his little restaurant there in 1971, because he wanted to do something nice for seniors. He knew that often they were alone, didn't have a place to be, and in gratitude for his blessings and for the support that the community had given him in building his business, he wanted to do something nice. And so he said, you know what, I'm going to feed a group of about 50 seniors out of my restaurant in Fort Worth. And it was a great success. And when you look at the pictures, you can see his face. It's just lit up with joy to see how excited the seniors were to be there. And in 1971, of course, he had a business in San Antonio as well. And but I guess the vision hadn't expanded yet. So he kept, feeding these folks out of his little restaurant for many years. And then in 1979, he said, you know what, I really want to do something like this in San Antonio, because obviously the community has supported me all of these years, and I want to, implement this here. So in 1979, he started the first one here in San Antonio and fed about a couple hundred folks. And at first, some of his friends and colleagues said, that's very generous, but we don't think that people will come because it's the holiday and everyone's going to be with their families. And he said, no, you watch. There will be folks here and there is a need. And so they fed a couple hundred. And now I'm so grateful to the community because we are celebrating our 35th anniversary this year.
And how many guests do you think you're going to be feeding this time?
We actually are preparing, with the support of 4,000 volunteers and the wonderful donors and supporters, we are going to prepare enough meals for 25,000 seniors, underprivileged families, and the homeless this year.
But think about that. 200 guests 35 years ago. And now several thousand volunteers just to handle the volume, the need, and the outreach.
Yes.
That has got to make you feel, my goodness, tremendous. How does it make you feel?
Oh, my goodness. It makes me feel very grateful. I tell everyone that this is the greatest gift that anyone could give to our family. It's a wonderful tradition, and we are grateful that the community continues to keep my father's legacy alive. And it's, like you mentioned, a San Antonio tradition now, and only San Antonians could pull something like this off because we have a very generous community.
Well, the volunteer corps, I think, is at the essence of making this thing work. And talk a little bit about what goes on into getting the volunteers, getting it all taken care of and cooked and done and served and cleaned up and all that.
Yes, it's amazing. Some folks think that we actually start cooking the day before, but we're talking about 550 turkeys. And I'd like to say a special thank you to the RK group who has generously donated those turkeys. But basically, we start in the kitchen the Sunday prior to Thanksgiving. And through the course of the day and the week, we continue to prepare the meal, from the turkey to the stuffing to all of the side dishes. And volunteers are always so willing to help. It's amazing.
Now, you said 4,000 volunteers?
Yes. Well, from beginning to end. So we have some that are working in the kitchen behind the scenes,
Right.
Several days prior. And then we have the decoration of the hall, which is huge, the day before. And even kids, school kids around the city, make all our placemats and our centerpieces. So even those children who may not be old enough to participate there at the event are still giving back at such an early age with all their placemats and centerpieces that they make. And a lot of them, they put special messages on them, and you'd be surprised how many seniors treasure that and take that home as a souvenir.
Oh, yeah, I can only imagine. So, if people want to get involved, how would they go about getting involved, getting engaged, and that kind of thing?
Well, they can go to our website at rauljimenezdinner.com, and we have a link under the volunteer tab, and they can check to see what volunteer opportunities are available and register online.
So you got the website, the Facebook, and the Twitter, and
yes.
everything, right?
We'd love to gain more Facebook fans. Please look for us.
Yeah, I can imagine. I guess in today's environment, all that social media stuff is incredibly important. A lot of people think about reaching out to the seniors, and indeed, it's a lot of outreach into the community to get that many volunteers. So what are some of the skills? I guess any skill would do, but what skills are kind of harder to get than others?
Well, not necessarily skills, but of course, no one likes to clean up.
Right.
So, of course, we are always looking for folks to come from the 4 o'clock hour to the 6 o'clock hour to help us pick up chairs, clean up, pack up things, at everybody's home. That's the least favorite thing to do, wash dishes.
That happens at my house. Nobody wants to hang around. Everybody wants to go watch football.
Yes.
It's the cleaning up part of it that becomes the issue, right?
Right. But we have some wonderful chefs that are there, and they actually support ensuring that everything runs smoothly and that everything is done to the health standards. But basically, the volunteers are the ones that are making it all happen.
So now, in the 35 years that this has been going on, I'll bet you could tell us 1,000 stories, funny ones, sad ones, ones that pull at your heartstrings, so to speak, and others. Share with us a couple of things that are incredibly memorable to you from any of the past years.
Well, I remember this one man. He was an elderly man, and they kept radioing me that he needed to speak to me in person, and he would not tell anyone what he wanted. He just needed to speak to me, and I'm happy to speak to whomever's there. So we finally met up, and he said, this dinner has meant so much to me for so many years, but now my financial situation has changed and I want to make a donation. And of course, I said, we serve everyone. We do not charge for the meal. It's not necessary, thinking it was going to be a small donation like $5 or $10 or $20. But he was very insistent, so I thought that, I'd be polite and I'd oblige. And so he gave me his donation wrapped up in a paper towel. So, of course, at that moment, I put it in my pocket, and I didn't want to, be rude and open it up. And so, I thanked him, and he said he was so happy and he would continue to come. This was his tradition, and he wasn't going to change, that tradition. He enjoyed it so much. So to make a long story short, I get home, and, I was telling my family about this wonderful gentleman that I met. And so I'm opening up the paper towel that he had given me, and there was $1,000 in cash.
Goodness, yeah.
So I think that just showed how much it meant to him. And he said, for all the years that I've been coming here when I didn't have a place to go, my situation has changed, and I want to give back so that others can definitely enjoy the same type of Thanksgiving.
Well, that's an incredible story. And, I think everybody talks about it, and you share that story, and I bet you there's 1,000 other ones like that people just recognize that the real value here is not receiving a meal. It's not necessarily what you get, but it's the opportunity to give. And, that I think is above all what kind of underscores the whole event. And people just enjoy giving, having an opportunity to give and make a difference in somebody's life.
Absolutely.
And then they pay back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Pay it forward.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that some individuals, it's amazing to see that when everyone gets together, you're talking about thousands of people in one location, but it's like one big family. No one is being judged. people come not just for the meal. They're not just receiving the meal, they're receiving fellowship. And they are being treated with dignity and respect, regardless of why they're there.
Well, I think that's, again, what makes this thing such a success, and everybody just appreciates the environment and really the image that it gives San Antonio or reinforces about San Antonio. But it doesn't happen easy. I know that there's an awful lot of outreach, a lot of work that goes on to try to reach out to folks and to try to get them to come in. So what are some of the things perhaps that you do to reach out to groups, kind of coordinate all of that, and maybe some of the struggles that you go through in trying to get that accomplished?
Well, we definitely want to say a big thank you to the city of San Antonio, who's been there to support us all 35 years. And through some of the resources there, we're able to communicate with the senior centers, and the managers help us in getting the word out to the seniors at the different senior centers. And then, City Tours Inc., they actually provide the transportation of buses from the nutrition centers to the dinner. So we're very grateful to the city.
So it takes an awful lot of folks.
It takes a lot of folks and a lot of resources, but we definitely want, if you're a senior watching this program, please check with your local senior center and make sure that you get signed up to come.
Well, just go back and think, what do you think your dad would be saying right now if you were seeing where it's gone, what you're doing with it, and the impact that it's making in our community?
Oh my goodness, he would be so thrilled, because his goal was always to make things bigger and better and to help more people. So he would be so excited to know that it had grown to the point where we were reaching more folks and more folks were benefiting, and especially seniors, that they wouldn't be by themselves at home.
Well, I think that's a great story to end this interview on, and thank you very much for being here. Great things are in store.
Yes, thank you. It's my pleasure, and thank you for all that you do to support us as well.
Well, ending a show like this would only be proper in appreciation for all the work that you've done. The District 6 seniors, there's a senior center that has been greatly benefited in every level, by what you've done over the last 35 years at the dinner. I'd like to present you with a check that represents $1 for each one of those seniors in the senior centers in the District 6 Center, which is 6,252 seniors.
Oh, my goodness.
So we want to present that in behalf of the seniors in District 6, and know that many of our seniors are going to be there at the dinner, enjoying having the fellowship and wanting to pay it forward, like you said earlier.
Thank you so much. This is a wonderful blessing for us. I look forward to definitely seeing some of those folks out there, and this is going to help us feed many more.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, and stay with us. We'll be right back after a short break to talk about some projects in our district.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Buzzed, busted, and broke, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Playing in the WNBA takes a lot of practice, so I attend every practice to work on my game. I'm Danielle Robinson. You too should attend school every day, because that's what it takes to be a winner. Whether you're in school or in sports, you need to show up to win. That's why I support SA Kids Attend to Win. S-U-C-C-E-S-S, Texas Students Have Success. And by the way, winners call me Danielle.
Up, college is hard. Down, those books are heavy.
My sport is football, but my passion is education. So every year I take promising high schoolers on a college tour to show them that higher education means a brighter future. My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
You can be a reader, tutor, or mentor too. Take the pledge at liveunited.org/volunteer.
Do you wear this?
Hi, I'm Danny Green of the San Antonio Spurs, and I'm here with Chief McManus to talk to you about graffiti. It's not art when you're vandalizing someone else's property. It's just plain disrespectful.
Most importantly, it's a crime. Graffiti can get you big fines and even prison time. And it costs American taxpayers over $8 billion a year.
Don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution. Devote your time to keeping San Antonio clean and beautiful.
Team up with us to wipe out graffiti.
Team up!
Welcome back to our show. I'm your host, City Councilman Ray Lopez. We're going to talk with Josh Donay, Public Information Officer for TxDOT. Welcome, Josh.
Well, thanks.
Now, did you get your last name right?
They did. They did. You pretend the T's a Y. It looks French, but it's not, and it's
Well, I mean, we already had all the donut jokes lined up, but apparently we're not going to be able to go do that. But anyway, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
We try to do these shows monthly and try to get timely information out there to the folks. And it just seems that what you guys do at TxDOT is always a timely issue for our community.
Yeah.
Whether it's road congestion, road changes, construction, or as we'll talk a little bit later on, all the safety issues with the holidays coming up and the like. Yeah. So let's kind of start with that.
Sure.
What are some of the biggest issues that you see facing, highways today in general?
Sure. Well, Councilman, as you know, you've worked with us quite a bit. Our mission is to provide a safe and reliable transportation solutions for Texas. And I mean, that sounds like a lot of corporate speak, but really what it means is that we want to make sure that people get a highway system in Texas that's safe to drive on and that can get them from where they are to where they're going. In one piece, so to speak. What's really difficult about that and having safety as our top goal and top priority is that's something that we really don't have a ton of control over. I know a lot of people like to talk about keeping the roads safe, and that's our mission, but at the same time, that's not something that we can do by ourselves. So we spend a lot of time and effort trying to let people know how they can help us achieve that mission. We are a government agency, so we are for the people, by the people, and of the people, and so forth. But it really boils down to the folks here in San Antonio having safe habits when they get behind the wheel.
Well, that's true, and I know that you guys do a good job of trying to remember or remind people of what some of those good habits should be, like slow down, the whole thing about when you see emergency lights or a TxDOT truck or whatever. Talk a little bit how some of that discussion came up and who gets to put those messages up there?
So messages that you see out there, and the biggest complaint I think that we get is people say, hey, quit telling me how many people have died in the state of Texas every year. And that's a great complaint. We'll stop doing it when people stop dying. And that's the answer to that. That actually is a decision that's made up in Austin by the folks in Austin, and that's a statewide message. It's not just something that's done here in San Antonio. Austin, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and Houston area also show those messages, and anywhere else that we have digital message boards. What it really boils down to is we have a major problem statewide, and particularly here in San Antonio with drunk driving. And we also have a major problem with distracted driving. I want to talk about drunk driving first, Councilman. Sure. San Antonio, I'm sure you remember reading it earlier this year, Men's Health magazine gave San Antonio a rather dubious ranking. Number 2 in the nation as the drunkest city in the United States. Number 2 behind a small town in California called Bakersfield. That's frustrating for me. I for one, I don't drink at all, so I get kind of frustrated when I see that, and I know that I have my brothers and sisters here in San Antonio are out doing what they do, and they party, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but then they're getting in behind the wheel. And I know that over the last several months on the City Council, you guys have talked a lot about law enforcement and making sure that they're taken care of appropriately. Well, San Antonio is arresting over 360 people every month for drunk driving.
That's right.
And every time one of your officers is busy pulling somebody over, that takes them off the street to do other things for at least 4 hours of their shift that day. I mean, you think about the man hours that we're investing right now and just trying to get people to stop doing something that is frankly selfish and pathetic, and it's something that needs to stop.
No doubt about it. And I think I actually saw a message that alluded to the hangover that you get from a DUI, which is not just the next morning, but indeed it's such a dramatic financial impact and so many other ways devastating on an individual's life, particularly the young folks that don't maybe think about it and they think it's an easy thing to do, and then wind up really hurting themselves for an awful long time.
It is. I think one of the more unfortunate things I've heard through drunk driving is too many people say, well, everybody's doing it, or, we never get caught or whatever. Not everybody's doing it. Thank you very much. Or I'm
not that drunk. And unfortunately, you're not the judge, right?
One drink is way too many. It's not that hard to call somebody and say, hey, come get me, or to call a cab. There are a ton of different options out there today. Right. We don't have to get behind the wheel when we're drunk. Oh, absolutely. So.
Now, of course, drunk driving, and I have heard all kinds of statistical inferences on texting, and is just as bad, if not worse, than from an attention perspective than drunk driving. Talk a little bit about that.
So texting and driving, we all use our cell phones on a regular basis. 15, 20 years ago, we didn't dream about the kind of technology that we have today. Right. But, I remember just a few weeks ago, I was visiting with a group of realtors in San Antonio and asked, show of hands, how many have been doing it for 20 years or plus. Had a good handful of them. And I asked them if they'd been able to conduct business without, emailing on their phone. And they said, well, sure, we did just fine. I said, then stop doing it behind the wheel of your car. The fact of the matter is that's a driver's seat when you're in a vehicle. It's not a desk to do email. It's not your desk to do your Facebooking. It's not a phone booth. It's not your little mirror place or whatever it's called, vanity or whatever, to do your makeup. It's a driver's seat, and you're behind the driver's wheel. Your hands and your eyes and your attention should be focused at the task at hand. And you're right, Councilman. Those who are texting and driving are shown to be actually worse drivers than those who are at the legal limit of alcohol consumption. So that's scary, and it's happening all the time.
Right. Yeah, and affecting driver behavior has been, I guess, the topic of discussion at City Hall for quite some time. How do we go about doing that? There's a couple of ways of looking at it. One is from an enforcement perspective. We can start arresting an awful lot of people and finding an awful lot of folks. But the reality is it's about outreach and informational support for individuals. Just reminding them, most people will be prudent. Yeah. Except once in a while. And that's all it takes. That once in a while where you could indeed have a catastrophe that could certainly in your life or someone else's or significantly negatively impact that. It's a very important message, and thank you for delivering it.
Oh, absolutely.
I can tell you I'm not complaining about the message you're delivering.
Yeah, we can talk for hours. I'll tell you what, I'll leave you with this, Councilman. You've met our Deputy Executive Director before, John Barton. One thing he likes to talk about is about 14 years ago, we had a tragedy in the United States that happened in New York where a couple of planes hit some towers, and 2,000 to 3,000 of our brothers and sisters here in America were killed. And, of course, as a nation, we banded together and we tried to do what we could to right that wrong. Every year, in the state of Texas, we have somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 of our brothers and sisters that are killed behind the wheel. And most of that, overwhelming majority of that, is due to texting and driving or to drunk driving. And it's sad to me, and I know that John delivers the message much better than I do, but we need to do something to band together to stop
Well, you're making a very good point, Josh, and you delivered it quite well, I can assure you. And I think a lot of the discussion that happens is about driver behavior and the like, but oftentimes driver behavior is also influenced by frustration, right? People are just so frustrated, they've been stuck in traffic for a long time, and all of a sudden they're dodging and darting and changing lanes and maybe not being as attentive to what they're doing or maybe as respectful on the road as they possibly could be. And I know that's a concern. But really, in today's environment, it's going to be really difficult to build quick roads and put a whole lot of lanes out there to take care of all these issues because of funding. And just across the board, funding is tough. So we all work as multiple agencies to try to bring dollars to the table. And I know we're going to continue to do that. We've been successful over the course of the year to draw down dollars into San Antonio. And I think the listeners or the people that are watching in District 6 are very interested in what's happening in our neck of the woods, which is the 1604, 151 stuff. Yes. I'll leave it at stuff and let you kind of define what that means. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we're expanding 1604 into an expressway. So that means overpasses. That's the big key. People want overpasses on those expressways. So we're building right now overpasses at Braun Road, at New Gilbo and at Shanefield Road, and that we're also given frontage roads and main lanes. I mean, it'll be a full-on expressway from Bandera through Culebra Road, which is going to be great. A lot of folks are going to love that. It's going to make that sticky. I know I drive through it myself on a regular basis. That Braun Road, you get to that in peak hours, and it's a spot that everybody kind of gets stuck at. And that kind of stuff will go away. We did the Super Street intersections a couple of years ago. I think 2012 we had those built, and we knew at the time it was a stopgap measure. It was an inexpensive way, relatively inexpensive way to get an immediate fix until we could get what we're doing now done. So we're well in the process of work right now. Our contractor out there, Williams Brothers Construction, they're actually designing the project as they build it. It's called a design-build process. Most of our projects, we design it all the way and send it out, get a contractor, and the contractor builds what we design. Kind of like buying a set of Legos, you know, and you have the manual with them. Well, in this case, we gave them the box of Legos, and we didn't give them the design so much. We just gave them a picture and said, this is what it's supposed to look like when it's all done. So they're designing it as they go. It allows us to deliver something much faster, because we give them an absolute deadline and say, you got to have, you know, this picture done by X, Y, Z, and they get going. So they're well on their way. The first thing that we're going to see them do, and we have been seeing them do, is the construction of the frontage roads, especially right there around Culebra to New Gilbo and so forth. Once those frontage roads are in place, and we're probably talking mid to late 2015, we'll have those frontage roads start being in place where we can start using them. Then they'll shut down the main lanes. It really won't be much of a change for you and I as we drive, but they'll shut down those main lanes and start building on the overpasses. Hopefully, if everything goes right, by the middle of 2017, we should have everything running.
Good.
So,
well, everybody's anxious, and I know before the good is going to come the heartache of construction, and but I think everything is relative, right?
Yeah.
We've had a tremendous amount of congestion out there. It continues to grow, and I think this will be a very solid, well-received fix.
Yeah.
Now, talk a little bit about the 151 1604 situation. I'll leave it at situation. I'll let you explain it.
Well, you know, as you know, that we started and then we stopped, and I won't talk about the stop. We're done with that. We're starting again.
We're not talking about that anymore.
We're starting again. We got federal clearance. We have to play by a set of rules that come from the federal Department of Fish and Wildlife, I believe it is. And they've set some rules for us, but they've given us clearance to go ahead and build. Now, the original plan, we were going to take 151 under 1604 and connect it with Alamo Ranch Parkway. Now, instead of going under, we need to find a way that reduces excavation. So we're going over instead of under. That project, again, it just received clearance, so we'll start work in 2015. It'll be finished by the end of 2017.
And then from that point, or all the way around to the rest of the far west on 1604, I guess would be coming after that.
Yeah.
Funding's there.
So we've got funding in place to continue that expressway beyond 151 through Petranco, Wiseman, all those, and all the way down to 90. Those projects, I think there are two pieces to that work. And again, funding's in place. We're going to get going on that stuff in 2015.
Well, I can tell you that it's of great interest. You could be here talking about this for hours and hours, and everybody would be interested because everybody wants to know how am I going to get and what am I going to get.
That's right.
And how soon.
Yeah.
The answer is as quickly as we can get there. We're working diligently through it.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for what you and TxDOT are doing for our community. It's greatly appreciated.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for tuning in. I'd like to once again thank my guests for taking the time to provide us with such great information about the Raul Jimenez Thanksgiving dinner and the projects in the district. I look forward to our upcoming shows. And until next time, I'm your City Councilman, Ray Lopez. Thank you again, San Antonio.
Iba a comprarle un juguete a mi bisnieta. Al empezar a cruzar la calle, noté que no iba por el cruce de peatones. Como quiera, seguí cruzando. El chofer de la camioneta nunca me vio. Ahora mi bisnieta solamente me conoce por medio de fotografías.
Los cruces de peatones salvan vidas. Camine seguro, San Antonio.